Welcome to the Sports on I-40 podcast, where the highway is long, the nights are cold, and the truth is coming in hot. It's week 2 in 3A girls hoops, and right now the only thing louder than the wind whipping across the high desert is the sound of a season teetering on the edge. Greg Perkins, the man who has worn Holbrook red for longer than some of these kids have been alive, looked straight into the microphone on this very show during episode 7 and said it plain, "If we don't make the playoffs, I'll hang it up." Translation, every loss from here on out isn't just a loss, it's another mile marker on what could be Coach Perkins' farewell tour. And after an 0-2 start, blown out by Tuba City and dropped on the reservation to Winter Rock, that farewell tour is picking up speed faster than a semi with a downhill grade. Across the East, Snowflake is still the reigning champ, waiting to remind everyone why. Sholo is licking its wounds after Page walked into their gym and stole one. Winslow just ran Chino Valley off the road 77-16, and Alchese is rolling with 7 seniors ready to make noise. Up in the north, Tuba City is driving the bus like they stole it. Monument Valley turned Kayenta into a graveyard for Blue Ridge, and Ganado is quietly stacking bodies. Page and Shinley both took punches in week 1, but you know they're coming back swinging. And tonight, our model has the lines locked and loaded. Ganado -8 over Holbrook. Winslow -10 against Monument Valley. Page -12.5 on Benjamin Franklin. Winter Rock -4.5 hosting Alchese. And Tuba City -1 at Sholo in a pick'em that feels like a playoff game in November. We've got spreads, we've got totals, and we've got a whole lot of teams playing for their season before Thanksgiving. This is the Sports on I-40 podcast, where the stakes are real, the rides are rough, and right now the Roadrunners are staring down a season that could end with a handshake and a headset laid to rest. Buckle up, Arizona. Let's roll. One just slapped us all in the mouth. 9 games, 7 covers, 1 absolute bloodbath. Let's run the tape here. We opened the season with Page walking into Sholo as a 6-point dog and walking out with a 51-45 win. The model said Sholo would win by 6, but Page said, "Hold my water bottle." This is a 12-point swing on opening night. The first crack in the armor, and that was that was an interesting game because we had projected Sholo to beat Page, and based on what we've seen, I still feel that Sholo is the favorite, is the better team over Page, but you know, it is what it is, and Page came in there and they managed to take one over Sholo, and really it just came down to Sholo going cold in the third quarter, and they just weren't able to make up the difference in the fourth when Page had all the momentum. Then Valley Christian comes to Blue Ridge. We had Valley Christian by 3.5 points, but Blue Ridge covers, but the game explodes to 118 points. We had the under at 88. That's a 30-point miss on the total. Lesson 1. Early season scoring is chaos. And it certainly was. I mean, there's been a lot of scoring. There's been a lot of ups and downs here. And we've been certainly following that. And it's been interesting to see what this model has been projecting. But what the model's been projecting, but seeing what actually happened in real life is actually very interesting. Next, Winslow. We said Winslow was going to be minus 4.8 points at home against Chino Valley. Fortunately, they won 77-16. That's a 61-point cover. That's not a win. That's a crime scene. Next, Alchese, we had him as a 7.5-point favorite against Valley Sanders. The final score, 61-35. That's a 26-point cover. 7 seniors, 4 Alchese said, "Not in our house." And they certainly came up there and they took care of business. Next, we had Winter Rock. They were a -1-point favorite at home against Holbrook. This Winter Rock team, though we had them projected low this year, they came out swinging, and they have a couple of players on their team that are certainly making Winter Rock's woes a little bit better compared to last year. They ended up beating Holbrook 44-39. That was a 5-point cover for Winter Rock, and the under of 91.8 hits like clockwork. And really, Winter Rock should have beaten Holbrook by a lot more, but Holbrook was able to rally the last few minutes in order to make this score not seem that bad. But I want everyone to take a note here. Winter Rock looks like they're going to have a bright future ahead of them. Ganado was a -11.5-point favorite against Hopi. They ended up beating Hopi 63-29. That was a 34-point cover, and the under of 97 points hits on this one here. Ganado's not playing around. We'll have to see how they shake up the 3A North. It'll be interesting to see them play Holbrook tonight, and we'll have a little bit more information on how we think Ganado could impact the 3A North and see how our model can deal with that. Tuba City was a 4-point favorite on the road at Holbrook. They ended up crushing Holbrook 58-23, and it was really a terrible game for Holbrook. They initially came out tough in the first quarter, but eventually Tuba City managed to take control in the second half. It was a brutal second half. I think Holbrook only scored like 8 points or something like that. I mean, it didn't feel like it was. It felt like it was less than that. It was certainly a terrible performance by the Holbrook Roadrunners. Hopefully they can put things together and have an answer for this evening against Ganado. The under of 95.5 points hits against Tuba City and Holbrook. And at this point, Tuba City just announced they're driving the North. And, earlier in the preseason rankings, we had initially had Tuba City at the top, but then we had heard word of one of a certain players from Tuba City transferring. But to me, right now, we should have kept Tuba City at the top, and right now we're going to show you later on that Tuba City is going to be the top dog for the North. And I think right now Tuba City is going to establish themselves as the top team in the North, but who knows, anything can happen. But right now, the model is projecting Tuba City to make some big moves and potentially take this North Conference with ease. Actually, I take that back, not with ease. It's going to be a dogfight to the end, but I think Tuba City will most likely wear the crown at the end. Monument Valley was a 6.5-point favorite against Blue Ridge, and they were able to take care of business. They beat Blue Ridge 60-29. I mean, it was a 31-point cover, and Monument Valley just took care of business against Blue Ridge. Blue Ridge had a long road trip up there and a long road trip back, and we'll have to see how Monument Valley continues to perform. But right now, Blue Ridge, though they were able to be competitive, we'll have to see if this is going to be a fight for last place between Blue Ridge and Holbrook. Chinle was a minus 14.5-point favorite against Kanab. They ended up losing 44-62. We had projected that Chinle would win against Kanab, and it ended up being the other way around. Kanab totally won this game. It was a 32.5-point miss, the biggest upset of the week. So we'll have to see how Chinle responds to this, and let's see if they can go out and build on this and potentially get back on the right track. But right now, the North is a tough division, and Tuba City is playing so well. Page isn't going to back down as well. If Chinle wants to stay in this race, they're going to have to put something together, and they're going to have to win this game, win these next few games to prove themselves as a force in the 3A North. So all in all, the week 1 scoreboard, our model, we were 7-2 against the spread. We had an 86% hit rate. The only two misses were Page's road robbery and Chinle's home collapse, or Chinle's away collapse. I mean, the model took its lumps, dusted itself off, and now it's reloaded for week 2. Now let's take a look at week 2. The dust from week 1 hasn't even settled, and our model already has fresh lines ready to run over somebody. First up, Holbrook heads to Ganado as an 8-point underdog. After getting beaten by Tuba City and dropped on the reservation, Greg Perkins' squad is starting at 0-3. Ganado just beat Hopi by 34. The math says Ganado by 8. I say we lock it in and don't look back. It's going to be a tough game for the Holbrook Roadrunners. What we've seen from these first 2 games is they just don't have a bench. There's no help out there. We're going to have to see if Coach Perkins can put something together, and hopefully the girls can turn it around. There's certainly some things that will help them later on the season. To me, if their bench isn't there to help the starting 5, they're going to have to get used to playing more minutes out there and hopefully limit the turnovers. One of the things Coach Perkins had mentioned in our last podcast is if they keep their turnovers somewhere around under 18 turnovers, that would be a good thing for them. At this point, the turnovers are just falling like rain here. So turnovers are going to have to take care of these turnovers and try to do their best to reduce these, because every little thing hurts. And when you have a team with no bench like that and no help, every possession counts. So hopefully they're working on things, and hopefully they can turn some of these things around in order to change this season. Next, Alta rolls in the Winter Rock, catching 4.5 points. Two teams that both won ugly in week one. The reservation crowd, slow pace, and a total sitting at 88.5. I think the under is going to do well in this one, and we'll have to see. Alta has 7 seniors, and Winter Rock, they do have two freshmen that are impact players, and we'll have to see if that can manifest in some wins, and we'll have to see if they do well in this test against Altuve. Monument Valley, fresh off of 2 30-plus point massacres, goes to Winslow as a 10-point underdog. Winslow just hung 77 on Chino Valley. The model says -10, and I think that's probably going to be something that we're going to have to look into. Winslow was certainly a rebuilding team. We sort of listed them below contender. Initially, the model had predicted that Holbrook was probably going to finish above Winslow, but now that the season is playing out, Holbrook is moving down, Winslow is moving up, and we'll just have to see if Winslow can build off of this and try to make an impact in the 3A East. Then we've got the game of the week. Tuba City, 1-0 after that 30-point demolition of Holbrook. Tuba City goes to Sholo as a 1-point favorite. Sholo was wounded after Page stole a 1 at home. The total was 96. This is a rock fight that ends 49-47. If I were you guys out there, I would take Tuba City as the favorite and potentially the under for this one here. This is going to be a test. This is going to be a good game. The model has this one pretty close. We have Tuba City as a 1-point favorite. The model says that this game is going to be close. It's going to be something that that might potentially come down to a last play. But we'll have to see here. I'm totally expecting Sholo to be at the very least competitive in this one. Tuba City coming out here is definitely going to show if Sholo truly is a contender in the East, and if they can make some impacts to try to beat Snowflake here. Finally, Benjamin Franklin heads north to Page. They're a 12.5-point underdog. Page just beat Sholo on the road and got embarrassed by Kirtland Central. They're angry. They're at home. They're laying 12.5 against a team that lost to everybody last year. So Page, 12.5-point favorite. I think this is going to be one that we're going to look back on and say, yeah, they were definitely prepared. I mean, if we look at that here, Benjamin Franklin had a hard time last year. They did play Page last year as well and lost. Page definitely had a better team last year. And this year, Page, though they've lost some significant players, they're definitely rebuilding, and we'll have to see if their current leadership on the court can help manifest some wins here. But right now, this should be a win for Page. And what separates good teams from bad teams is good teams, they win the games they're supposed to win. And this is certainly a game that Page is supposed to win. So let's take a look at the revised Week 2 rankings for the 3A East and North. For the East right now, we have Snowflake still at the top. They have not played any games yet, so they're still number one, and they're going to have to prove themselves when they play their first game in December. Sholo, we still have as ranked number 2. They did have a home loss to Page, but like I said earlier in the show here, I think Sholo is a lot better than Page. They just had a bad night. They're certainly more athletic, and they have the height, and they do have the coaching as well that can match up to anyone in the 3A North and the 3A East. Winslow moved up to number 3. We had them lower earlier in the preseason rankings, but based on their performance against Chino Valley, they certainly in the win category, and Winslow could make some noise in the 3A East, and we'll just have to see once they start playing some better competition. Altus moved up as well. They had their one win against Valley Sanders, 61-35, and Altus certainly they're winning those games. They have to win as well. Holbrook is probably the one that made the biggest fall here. They dropped to number 5 with an 0-2 start. Both games were, I would say, ugly losses. Even though they barely lost to Winter Rock, that was a game that they probably should have lost by more. And then they played Tuba City last week as well, and that wasn't a game worth remembering either. So Holbrook needs to figure out what went wrong and see if they can do anything strategy-wise exercise, fitness wise, something. They got to think of something in order to turn this season around. Lastly, Blue Ridge. We still have Blue Ridge at the bottom, and the way it's looking here, even though even though they have won a game, this potentially could be a race for last place. Who's it going to be, Holbrook or Blue Ridge? We'll just have to see. If we look at the north here, Tuba City moving up to the number 1 spot. Initially, when we first had the preseason rankings, we initially had Tuba City at the top. But then we had heard about some changes that were made in the roster. But from what I've seen when Tuba City came to Holbrook, I do think Tuba City is the clear favorite in the north right now, with Page coming in number 2 and Chinle number 3. And Chinle, I think potentially the model might be overlooking Chinle, or not overlooking. They might be giving too much weight to Chinle. I could see a scenario where Chinle falls further into the rankings here, maybe behind Monument Valley or maybe behind Ganado. Who knows? Maybe Chinle could finish last place, with Windrock finishing somewhere up in the 3s or 4s here, because Windrock does have some 2 impact players, 2 freshman girls that are definitely making an impact right now. And as they get more experience playing in this league, we'll have to see if that will be the big difference maker for them. Ganado, we're going to take a good look at Ganado tomorrow, or tonight, against Holbrook. The model certainly predicts Ganado being the favorite over Holbrook, and it's certainly going to look that way. If Holbrook can manage to at least keep the game close, that'll be a surprise for me, and hopefully can give a spark for Holbrook or some motivation for Holbrook to try to do better in the 3A East right now. Lastly, and if you look up here, Windrock, we still have them ranked low. We'll have to see. I certainly see a scenario where Windrock could move up. It's just going to come down to, can Windrock win these close games? Can they keep them close enough such that they have a chance to win at the end of these games? The 3A North certainly is tough. It's a tough environment to play in. If you take into account the road games, how far they have to travel, the crowd size is up there. I know it's nothing new to these teams in the North, but sometimes even just little things like that can affect teams. So Windrock is ranked still last right now, but it's certainly possible for them to move, and I see a scenario where they could. Now we have the 3A East and North girls basketball rankings together here. Right now, again, we still have Snowflake at the top. They haven't played games yet. Their first game is in December, so we'll have to see, what their team looks like coming this year. But the model ranks them high, and we're going to keep them at the top right now for now. But anything can change at this time. Tuba City is ranked number 2. They moved up big, with Sholo dropping all the way down to number 5 spot. They lost to Page. Chinle, it's quite possible that Chinle is ranked way too high. Maybe Chinle needs to be somewhere around 6 or 7. We'll just have to see if Page, or if Winslow, or if Chinle can continue to perform. I know they had just that one. It was their opening game against Kanab. We'll see if they can, muster some things together and potentially come back from this loss and maybe make an impact in these rankings. Monument Valley at number 6. They moved up here. Ganado as well. Winslow moving up to 8. Altusay, Windrock, and then again Holbrook and Blue Ridge finishing at the bottom here. And again, if Holbrook can't seem to turn things around, it's going to be a race for last place between Holbrook and Blue Ridge. Windrock certainly getting an improvement in the rankings here, moving up to number 10. And it'll be interesting to watch. I want everybody to look at number 10, Windrock, here in week 2. Let's see how far they move up throughout. Let's see how far they move up throughout the season goes. It'll be interesting to see if Windrock can make some moves and see if those new players on their team, the 2 freshman girls, let's see if they can make an impact. So the last thing I want to look at again one last time, 3A North and East spreads. So if we look up here on the chart here, we have the favorites to win. So against Holbrook, Ganado is favored to win, minus 380 to 290. Windrock, minus 210 against Altusay. Winslow being the favorite over Monument Valley. Tuba City being a slight favorite over Sholo, and Page being a big favorite over Benjamin Franklin. So we look at these numbers here. So if you look at let's look at the top one here, Ganado versus Holbrook here. So Ganado is minus 380. So the higher that negative number is, the more favored a team is to win. So Ganado is pretty favored to win over Holbrook. Another example here we look at here is Tuba City and Sholo here. So Tuba City is minus 120 and Sholo is minus 105. The model is basically saying that one of these two teams is going to win. It's basically almost a coin toss. But we do have Tuba City as the favorite for this one. And we'll have to see if that ends up being the case here. Maybe for some people out there, Tuba City is probably the clear favorite, and they're probably going to beat Sholo. But I'm still going to think I would probably take Sholo to cover here and beat Tuba City, but we'll just have to see. So again, if you look at the last one here, Page minus 750, they're a big favorite over Benjamin Franklin. So if Benjamin Franklin were able to pull the upset, that would be a big upset in order for that to happen. Either the model is completely wrong or Page just isn't as great as we think they are. But right now, Page is the heavy favorite here. So anyways, tell me what you think about these overs and unders, the spread here. What do you got here? Are you going to take the spread on some of these games? Are you going to take the over, or are you going to take the under on these scores? It's a lot of fun to look at it this way. And, one of the interesting things about our model is, the spreads, we've been getting them correct. We'd hope to get them closer. We want to have them as close as possible to the actual score. But either way, they've been certainly doing a good job in predicting winners and losers. Another surprise is our overs and unders. That over and under line has been pretty close to where the final total is, which is pretty cool too. And it's, from what I've been, talking to Mac about, it's pretty neat to see that you can make a score prediction like this purely based on, taking the win totals, the win differences from your team, last year's team, making some adjustments when it comes to, home court advantage and stuff like that. Also, senior contribution, points per play types of stats, just incorporating those numbers and incorporating it into this model. It's really cool to see that it can produce a number like this and actually have a real world result. So yeah, again, tell me what you think. And we will have to come back next Monday. We'll go over the week 1 or the week 2 spreads, and we will have the week 3 out for you as well by then. So, have a good morning, good afternoon, a good night. This is the Sports on I-40 podcast. Thank you.